Lead the charge.
So it's 2024,
Yeah.
and we're not friends anymore.
No. New Year.
Yeah, just kidding. Welcome back.
I did the reverse.
How's the year going for you so far?
It's been good. It's been good. We're already a month in, right? Yeah, it's already February.
It is. Today's actually February 1st.
Yeah. So it's been good. It's been, I think, a quick month. There was a lot that happened at the end of 2023. Business and kind of a bit of obviously the holiday side, and then 2024 has been good overall. Lots of stuff. I think lots of stuff on the horizon for the company and personally, and lots of challenges, which is always fun.
Yeah, let's start there. Let's talk about the company overall. I'm sure people have been wondering what's been going on, how things have been kind of wrapping up from the previous year and what we got on the docket for this year. So what do you think what was your favorite part about 2023?
That's a hard question. I think there's so many good things. I think it'd be favorite part. I think one of the top three is going to be the partnership with Surge, as I'm wearing this Surge sweater. Yeah. I think that one was super cool.
Man, the Toronto Marathon.
Toronto Marathon was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Toronto Marathon, Surge.
Team building, getting paintball that got shot in the neck and the collarbone.
I think even just what the company achieved in 2023 was super, super cool. I think that was cool. We grew a lot. The team grew. Everyone kind of came together there. Yeah. What else? What else was like key things?
Man, there was so much. We ended up reconfiguring our entire organizational structure in regards to how we measure things. We switched from a basic input-output methodology to now having governance and a system to be able to give us warnings in case like certain pieces in the company were going offside. I think we called them like red, green
guardrails,
and amber, because our COO is English, so amber, not orange or yellow. So there's a lot of nice little changes that were done. But the craziest part about it was the fact that if you're looking at the company as a whole, in my opinion, is the fact that we grew tremendously, but we also made significant internal changes. Typically, that's not it. Usually 1 year we make major changes, and then the next year we see the growth. We did both in 1 year.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And the year ended off, from my perspective, and actually probably just a general perspective, the year ended off better performance-wise than I think anybody could have guessed.
Yeah, I think I think we say this every time, but curveballs were thrown like every year, right? So it wouldn't be entrepreneurship without those. And I think everyone handled them really well. And a cool part of what wasn't like Gursh and Kai are come to save the day every time, which I think was nice.
I kind of missed that though. It's kind of fun to go in there and be like,
it's nice, but I think it was cool to just see, like you said, right? We built our leadership team further. We had a lot of new key individuals come in key positions. We saw the team grow all around. We opened a Lethbridge office, right? We launched that. Actually, that's a huge highlight too. We were able to launch the location successfully with a lot of autonomy, which I think is very cool to see. I think we talked about it in one of the podcasts this year, but about the next stages of growth, if we have to go and grind 80 hours a week, right? It's not success. And I think that was one of the things that really showed with the Lethbridge side, is it wasn't like that. Yeah. It was a lot of teamwork came together and brought that to life. And I think even just seeing the individuals on the team in Lethbridge, they're just as passionate as everyone else in the company. It's super cool. So
yeah, and hearing you say that makes me think the company is going to be 9 years old this April.
I know.
Right? Getting
crazy.
Pretty close to a decade.
It's wild.
Yeah, you look the same, which is good.
I hope so. I don't know. Yeah, good sleep.
The years haven't been good sleep. The years haven't been that hard on you, which is nice. But it's so weird because I'm getting up there in the years, 30, mid 30s now. Yeah. But
is it late 30s this year? Is that what it is? Oh no.
Once you turn 35, it's late 30s.
Always mid 30s. It's
always mid 30s. But the funny thing about aging as a human being, it's not until quite a bit later in life that you know what you're good at and what you're bad at, right? And even still, like, I'm learning. I think it's fair to say. Do you feel like
100%.
Yeah, you're still learning. And I feel like the company went through that in 2023, is that we found out what we're really good at and bad at, but not necessarily from the perspective of a business thing, because we're residential only, right? That took time for us to get there. That was a big piece.
Actually, I think 2023 was the first year we truly did that too.
We truly did it,
Because in 2022, we still had closeouts, right?
We had the University of Calgary and University of Alberta projects.
Yeah, and the bigger, So there was,
Yeah, so it's a year that we actually truly got to do what we want to do and we know is the right thing to do. And then simultaneously within that, we determined what we were good at and what we were bad at. And man, when we were talking about we're bad at things, they weren't. It was bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know, what was it? Let's just get into it, man. Like, what do you think, what was your least favorite things?
For the year, that's a hard one too, because I think, I don't know, because I think and this might be a bad thing, this might be like a bad trait, but I think for me, something that is my least favorite thing is the thing that I like to lean into, right? I think we talk about this sometimes too, right? Like in chaos is when we actually find like peace. And I think when things kind of get chaotic within the company, it almost brings you back to like the reality of the journey of the business. So I would say that, I don't know, there was curveballs thrown in 2023, but I think there wasn't anything I'm like, hey, I hated this. This was brutal. I think if I could say one thing, it would probably be truly letting go further. It was very hard and is still very hard. And not in a sense of that, again, there's no trust in other individuals. I think it's just, this is our baby, so to say. And like you said, turning 9 this year, it's come a long way. So I think letting go of that trust has been something that maybe is a bit harder. Or not the trust, sorry, letting go of kind of the vine, as we say within the company, has been harder. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say there was one thing right now. Maybe you'll spark something that stands out as, hey, this was bad. What about you?
Yeah. Do you mind if I provide some feedback?
Yeah, give it.
So one of the things that I think you're really good at, and this is something that I also have a skill at, and I think as a tip to anybody listening, one of the best skills that you can have as an entrepreneur is the ability to reframe. And as an individual that reframes well, both of us as individuals that reframe well, it's very hard to look back and say this was not something that I appreciated or it's something negative, right? And that's good because it allows you to be able to continue moving forward. But you've heard me say this before. I'll complain about something and then you'll be like, no, it's all good. Like, no. I'm going to complain about this and I'm going to complain about it later today and I'm going to complain about it tomorrow and maybe I'll complain about it one more time. And the reason being is that you need to sometimes ground yourself in the pain so that you don't forget. And that's only something that I learned closer to the end of the year, that you really need to dig your heels in, because it's that mantra I was telling you about, the one that I'm hooking myself into right now, is that the only way to humility is through pain, right? That's where you learn to become humble. And for me, because I only captured it at the back half of the year, or even the last quarter is when it really started to come to life for me. I think the things that were the toughest for me were generally just things, like you said, things that I was creating. It wasn't like anybody else was doing anything wrong. Like, our team is incredible. We have dedicated, hardworking individuals. We just got a report. So, at this podcast, welcome to the team, Megan. We got a new VP of Finance, extremely skilled, insanely fast at picking up information. Like, the rate of absorption that she has is pretty cool. But to get to the point, she sent us a summary. And for the leaders out there, or the future leaders who want to have something like this, summaries from somebody else's perspective that you're not involved in, when you say, hey, please go and take a look at this, and you don't give any insight, and they come back with a report, is really cool. And she sent one last night, and she had noted that extremely talented and intelligent team, consistently working extra hours but never complaining about it. And I was like, oh, that's simultaneously not what we want. We want everybody to have healthy life balance, but it's amazing to see that people are doing it with a smile on their face. So the key piece for me last year is that I think that I derailed some of that, where I saw problems in the organization that I felt that I could fix. And when we get pulled in, we don't come in be all happy. When we come in, we come in heavy. Like, we're coming in there with like almost like the textbook, like
guns blazing,
right? Guns blazing, like let's go kind of attitude. So leaning off of that and giving more space for our higher leadership team to be able to do that is the key for this year that I want to be able to change as an individual from what I did last year. I think that's my biggest takeaway. And everything kind of falls into that. Now, if I'm talking about the personal side of things, holy crap, the personal side of things was interesting last year. I learned so much as an individual. I learned that because of what the energy that I had put into Zeno, that I actually ended up sacrificing my personal relationships worse than I thought I had. So that was a huge learning, is that I didn't maintain my personal relationships properly, and I thought I could go back into them and just be like, hey, what's up? It's nice to see you again. And then it's like, yeah, so you know that pool that you liked? We sold it. And it's like, what? And then, you know, that kind of thing, right? It's you thought everything was exactly the same as it was, and then you try to put your foot back, and it turns out that nobody decided to stand still just because you decided to keep on moving. Everybody in life is always moving forward. Ours is just more measurable because we're doing this company stuff, right? So that was a huge learning. And I mean, there's a lot of positives too, though, man. Like my relationship with my kids is like incredible because I finally understand them, and I understand like what it means to be a good dad. And that was a seed that you planted with me too, right? It's like, oh, you know, maybe you'll have one really good goal in life. And what was it that you said?
Oh, I don't know.
It's like be the best dad ever, which is so cheesy. It's like on all the mugs. And I was like, you know what? Why don't I actually try that? And just focusing on one thing as a general goal ended up increasing the quality of my relationships with everybody right across the board. So that was pretty cool. How about the personal side for you?
Yeah, that's actually that's a good point. I think personal side, same kind of aspect as you. I think a lot was learned from an ability to focus more on the personal life. I think one of the things that we did over the course of this whole journey is we've kind of put that to the side, right? Like that was something that was just there, and it wasn't really a focus. And I think what I realized in 2023 is that not everything can revolve around work, and you can't kind of like intertwine your whole life into it because it just creates a lot of chaos and problems. So that was a big thing for me, is just realizing that, and then really going more inside and like figuring out where my flaws or different aspects are that I think when I have relationships with individuals, and where I can kind of work on that when it comes to communication and different aspects. So I think that helped me a lot to grow in that space. And that was heavily, I would say, kind of like throughout summer and then into the end of the year. And that's kind of put me in a really good mental headspace for 2024, which is really nice. And then one of the things, actually, I know you asked me earlier if I had like a saying that I kind of tack onto. One of the things I heard at the end of 2023, and I think it's used quite a bit, but I really like it, is that life doesn't happen for you, or life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And I truly do believe that. And I think that makes it like every moment that I get to have is something that I'm experiencing in that moment, and that it's not something that has to be negative, even if it's something I don't want to do, or if it's something that I find is like not my favorite piece of like life. I can actually still enjoy it, and I can enjoy little things. And I think one of the big problems is that, and especially like we'll talk about it after, but like training for the Ironman has really given me this mindset, is that the journey can be so fun, and you can actually integrate life into that journey rather than being like, hey, what's the goal? I want to get under 12 hours on the Ironman. Like that's all I'm looking at. It's like, no, the actual aspect of that training is what's taught me so many things already in just a month. And I think that's kind of related to my life, and you can actually just click things into that. You don't have to be as kind of structured around, hey, I need to do this here, this here. It's like, just let life be life and like live it how you want. And I think enjoy the moments within it, and whether they're negative or positive, you at the end of the day, again, the day is done and you get to kind of deal with the next one afterwards. So those are the big realizations for me in 2023 that kind of led into 2024. And I think that's why even going into the Ironman, talking a bit about 2024, it's why this year I was like, I can do it. Like I really want to do it. I kind of worked on my mindset for that at the end of last year, and I was like, you know what, 2024, I can put my things aside and I can kind of focus on that and still be able to include work into that, be able to include my personal life into that, and still just structure it all kind of into it. So yeah, I think that would be my main things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot there, and I mean, we can each one of those things, and it would become probably an episode in each of itself, right? But you know what it makes me think of when you say that is two things. One, let's talk about the Ironman, but the other thing is that phrase that I opened with, right? So you said life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, which is the same fundamental idea as like life is rigged in your favor, right? I like the way that you said it though. That phrase that I used, the piece about humility, that humility is through pain. I obviously, and I think you saw it happen in motion as well. And accidentally, I suppose, but I burned bridges even with friends this year. Right, like different situations happened, different stresses came in place, and obviously some balls were dropped, but humility was gained, right? I think that was the biggest thing. And what drove me to that statement was one realization, is that people won't remember what you say. People won't remember what you do. People will remember how you made them feel. That's the biggest piece, is that's where like everything gets locked in, is the mechanism of the emotion. Like, were you happy, sad, mad, angry, whatever that is carried in that moment, that's what locks it all in. So being aware of that, because I'm like, man, I'm brutal with emotions and feelings and stuff like that. I don't know how to. It's hard. Yeah, I don't know how to organize my emotions and into thoughts. And that's the problem, right? Is I try to organize it into thoughts. So trying to feel it, and not be so robotic, because I'd like to think that you're one of the most disciplined people that I know. And then I'm more disciplined than you. So just joking. We're both like insanely disciplined, right? And I think it's because that's where we feel comfortable, is in the rigidity of, I think what like the best schools of psychology call it is perfectionism, right? Is that we were kind of raised with that structure in place, and it's hard to break away from. So just kind of being okay with like not being perfect is probably the biggest piece, right? Now, that actually ties into the Ironman piece. So everybody knows that every single year we run a marathon together. And it's the Strides for Sustainability initiative that we started years ago. We've raised over $60,000 now to date. We've ran 5 different marathons together, the last one being Toronto, that was an awesome one. Like we crushed our goals last year. Good job on that team. It was awesome. And we set some killer PRs. It was cool, but this year we aren't doing that. And I think that goes back to the whole piece of like just being okay with it not being perfect, right? Is that we did shake on 50 marathons after we completed our first one, and the whole structure was we do it together. We run it in a different location every single year, and then we make sure it's carbon neutral and we raise money, right? So a couple parameters. The piece that we never really talked about was like the doing it together. That was always assumed, right? And that's the part that's really cool about communication. If something is assumed, then define it. It creates an opportunity for you to be able to speak on something. So this year you're doing your Ironman. Now, an Ironman it starts with a swim. Yeah, so it's just under 4 kilometers, 3.8 kilometer swim, 180K bike, and then a marathon, so 42. So you have your marathon there, right? At the end, And you and I were having an interesting conversation where I was like, oh, I'll just join you in Austria and blah, 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 blah. And, it's like, but not do it. And I think I had mentioned to you right away as soon as you brought it up, you're like, hey, I want to do an Ironman. And I think you had brought this up to me last year in like March. Yeah, I think I first thought about the Ironman in 2019, right before COVID hit. Right, I was looking at it with Matt. If Matt watches this, he can see how bad I was at swimming. But he was trying to teach me the swimming aspect for like a day, and then COVID hit. But then I heavily got back into it it would have been like Q2, so right before summer. Yeah, and as soon as that happened, I was like, you and I have a mentality that if you do something, I'm going to do it, and if I do something, you're going to do it. We tend to be very. I'd like to think the word that's probably best is we're very supportive, and we will go through the trenches together. It's probably a good way of looking, because we appreciate that we'll get through it, and the victory will be together as well too. It's nice. It's a healthy relationship from that standpoint. But I was like, man, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I already know how intense the marathon training is. And this year I'm going for a really aggressive goal. Like it's already chewing up lots of time. And I was like, man, a marathon with 3 kids. I have identical twins. They're 3. And I have a daughter who's 6. Now, she's aware of what's going on in life in general, but the boys aren't. They're just like, this morning they were pretending to be DJs, and they were spinning the knobs on the range. Like the one that you helped me move into. Yeah. So there's a kid walk on it, thank God, because they move the chairs over in the morning and they spin the dials, and I was like, oh no. I was like, this is going to be interesting. But because of that, I was like, you and I had a conversation, and I think I basically told you, like, I can't do it. I want my kids to be aware and present, because I only want to do one. I only want to do one. like bucket list item. And I was like, I want them to be part of it with me. And I came to the conclusion that 40 is the best year to be able to do that, because the kids will be at the right age for them to get influenced by it, but simultaneously either figure out one of the things, dad's a quack job, or I want to do this too, right? Because they're going to have different opinions. Yeah. So that was a piece. The deeper piece was, okay, now what do we do with our marathon? And what do we end up doing? We ended up going out for sushi and a good chat about it, right?
Yeah. I think just figuring out what that means. But I think it worked out fairly well. Again, like you said, life, to try to predict, it's already hard enough to predict 1 to 3 years, right? Yeah. Well, that's personal life, business, whatever. So to say in 50 years that stuff's not going to kind of interject. And I think it's that whole aspect of like rigidity in your life can sometimes actually create huge problems, because you actually put blinders on and you don't see the things around you. And I think you don't get to enjoy it. And then by the end of it, you're just at the destination, which is, for life would be death. And you've actually missed a bunch of the aspect of that journey, right? Because you're too focused on it. So that 50 years is obviously a huge trajectory. Like, we've done 5, we have 45 years left. We'll obviously double up probably in some years to get that all completed. But this one is more so just, the conversation around the Ironman, and then the marathon at the end, which we'll just substitute with, I'll do the marathon at the end, and then when you do the Ironman at 40, then you'll do that as your marathon, right? And we'll figure out from there. And I think it's cool to be able to kind of include that into that journey, because again, it just doesn't make it like A, B, C, D. It's kind of like you get to enjoy it, and you get to be the actual owner of your journey, right? So and that's what ties into that. And I think, as I mentioned before on the Ironman, what that means to me is it's something that I've wanted to do, and I think you got to be in a very, very sound space from like your surroundings, and then I think you also have to be very dialed into what the commitment to it is. And it was funny because I'm using this thing called Training Peaks. Actually super cool. It's like a training coach program where you can download into the Garmin watch, and every once in a while they give you videos, right? And there's sections. So like January was all kind of like the beginning, the warm up, getting used to everything. And now going into week 5, which I started on Monday, there's now an aspect of, I think it's called the build stage. And it was funny because the coach at the end of the video was like, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, tell whoever, your family, that you're going to have less energy. You're potentially going to be in like a bad mood sometimes. And all. It was just funny to hear that, because you do sacrifice a lot, right? You're sacrificing something in the short term to see a long-term achievement, right? Which is why the Ironman for me is such a big thing that I want to do, because like you said, discipline. I love being able to see what I can push myself to mentally and physically, and like what that can do to me as an individual, and what it does to like help me push forward and grow from it. And and I think that the Ironman's already taught me so many things in just a month of like, what is it actually? Sure, there's a physical aspect. Obviously, one of the biggest things for me is swimming. Like, I suck at swimming, right? I think the last time I swam was, I want to say grade 4, when you're like had to do swimming in school, and I was like level 5, like hanging on to the side. Me and my buddy Braden Poffenroth, I doubt he's watching this, but we were like the worst in the whole class. And so I couldn't swim, right? So when I got in that pool on January 1st, I was like, holy, what am I doing? Like, what have I signed up for? But lucky enough, my girlfriend Alvina, she took a video of me on the first week, and then actually on Monday on week 5, and I did a comparison, and it's actually nuts what you can do when you like just stick to something, and the difference it makes on just being able to kind of go through the technique and the different processes. So I've learned a lot on that, on just like.
And you have to be pretty humble, right? Like, you have to put a snorkel.
Oh, I had to put a snorkel. Yeah, and that's the other thing is like, where I'm training, there's individuals there. It's kind of cool because the public pool, so public lanes. There's individuals there, like there's an individual that's 80 years old that somehow swims 2K without stopping, and you're like watching him, you're like, how is that person doing that? And then you see like a younger individual that's like literally Michael Phelps, like just ripping through lanes, and you're just standing there like, okay, I have to kind of, how do I get in between this, right? How do I start to build my skills? And like you said, when I started, so now today I was like 90% without snorkel, but you put a snorkel on, you do all these different tools to help you learn the techniques, and they're super humbling, because you think that you can do all these things, but then when you actually step back, you're like, holy crap, I can't do any of these things, or I'm not good at these aspects of it. And so it's super cool to just be able to do that. And so as you start to take those off and get more endurance and kind of your skill, it's been really sweet. And then the other part about the Ironman that I really like is the time management piece. So because there's so much energy exerted in a day for your fitness side, you have less energy for other things. So what I've realized is that instead of being like, I almost used to treat, especially on the entrepreneur side, you treat a day as like limitless, right? Like you don't really care. You're like, it doesn't matter, it's 11
Until
p.m.
your eyes fall off.
Yeah, it's like, it's 11 p.m. I got to answer this email, I got to do this. I got to get up at 5, whatever. Now that I've done this, I've kind of been able to like block pieces, and that when I'm at work or when I'm focused on work, it's like, I know that I don't just have an extra 2 hours in the evening to get this stuff done. So I'm like, I need to block it into that, whatever, 8 hours, 9 hours during the day, so that I can actually make sure my food's good, that my training is good in the morning, and that my sleep, because the biggest problem with all this is if you don't sleep enough, it's like day and night. The days when I'm pretty good, I'm like 80, 90%, but
it's pretty early, because I think we were gonna chat the other night and you texted me at like 9:30 and you're like, dude, I'm going to bed. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I usually try to be getting ready for bed by 9:30 and then asleep by 10, which is like unheard of. Like I'm used to going to bed at like midnight and getting up at 6, which is stupid. So, but now it's, again, you're up at 5 and you shift that mindset of what you have to do in a day and the things that you have to fit in, and you actually become way more efficient. Like you're not scrolling on your phone as much because you just don't have the time. You're like, I can't do this, or I'm gonna screw up my whole sleep side of things. I think it becomes like front of mind. So it's actually helped me a lot on that side as well.
And you have a goal too now, right? Like what is your Ironman goal?
Under 12 hours, which for anyone that doesn't know much, like if you don't know much about Ironman, that's a pretty good time, I would say. I set that goal before I started. And I'm a little bit nervous about it. I think the biggest part for me is still the swim. If I can get that swim dialed and finish it in, even if it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, I know I can make up time in the bike and the run. Sure. And I'll say this out loud right now, and Ian will love this, our COO, but the bike has actually gotten pretty fun. I've started to enjoy the bike and love the bike for what it is. It's a very interesting aspect of the race.
Yeah, we were talking about that last night.
Yeah, and it's a pretty funny one too, because Klaus, an individual on our team's done 2 Ironman, and he said that, and most people say this, the race is won or lost on the bike because it's such a long distance in comparison. Like obviously 4K swim in a marathon is such a...
So how long does 180K take on average? If you're, let's say the 12 hours, right?
So I want to break it down to, let's say the swim takes an hour and a half to 2 hours. Let's say 2 hours. It's for simple numbers.
Swimming for 2 hours.
5 minutes. Usually people say 5 to 10 minutes to change in between. Usually that 10 is too long. So whatever that would be, it should be about 10 minutes extra. The bike, if I can do it well, I need to do it in like 6 hours. That means that I run a 4-hour marathon and I hit 12.
So that's like leaving Calgary and making it to Red Deer in 6 hours.
Yeah.
But a little bit further.
Yeah, a little bit further. Like even, and
it takes an hour and a half to drive. So
yeah,
you're going pretty quick.
So yes, but the thing, so an average to get a 6 hour, you're around 30, I think I was just looking at 30 to 35 kilometers for 180K.
But there's hills and you're in Austria, so there's mountains.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm lucky, it's hilly.
And there's sheep.
But the funny thing is the part with losing the race and winning the race on the bike is because you get out of the water, and this is just from what I've seen and what Klaus was saying too, you're fairly confident, right? You've gotten the hardest, a lot of people don't like to swim. Not most people aren't winning the race in the swim. And when I say winning, I mean like even like the pro athletes, that's not where they go to win the race. Some of them will gain time there. But you get off the bike, you get off the swim, you're a bit loopy, you get on the bike, and all of a sudden you have this weird confidence that you can like rip the bike. So you go to rip the bike, and by the time you get to 50, 60, 100 kilometers, you're like, oh, I'm killing it. But then you realize you still have 100 or 80 kilometers left, which is a lot. And a lot of people will just burn all their energy in that first portion.
Yeah.
And then that second portion becomes so hard that when you get off the bike, you're like 10% of your energy left.
Yeah.
And obviously, to run a marathon, again, I have to do it under 4 hours, and my best time is 3:23, and that's not after doing all those other things. So it's a pretty heavy goal that I've set for myself, but I think it just goes back to like the journey of the Ironman for me is something I want to achieve off the bucket list, but it's also just to inspire others. Like I want to do this, and I want to show people that there's not really any type of individual you have to be to do something like this. It's like, if you can push your limits and if you can stay disciplined and test yourself and trust the process that you put yourself through, you can do this. And that's why I'm like, you know what, hopefully I can inspire some individuals to kind of do something out of their comfort zone.
Totally, yeah.
It doesn't have to be the Ironman. It can be a half marathon, it can be a 10K, whatever it is, something that you've never done before that you didn't think you could do. If you can get out there and do it, then I've done what I've done, and that's what that's what kind of what I want to achieve.
Yeah, and I think speaking on inspiration, and maybe we should stop talking about the Ironman after this, because I want to make sure we get to our other topics as well. But this one is a like really fascinating for me. I think there's as your business partner, obviously, like one of my best friends, or like, I don't know, the mechanism of you doing the Ironman is an interesting one from a philosophical perspective. Is that when you exist inside of a community, the individual that's doing the hardest thing is where the energy should be focused on. And I'm not saying that from the perspective that like nothing else matters, but that's where the most energy typically is pulled towards. So the community that I've seen that's come around you since you've been starting to do this is really cool. Somehow my mom got wrapped into it as well, which was interesting, right? So I think this is maybe even the dark side of it, right? Like, one of the problems with this kind of training is you had your body attacking itself. One of your nails was basically this, and then my mom heard about it, and then she's like, "Bug Kai, get him to come here now." And she was a nurse when she was working, and I think she ended up spending a little bit of time with you to try to help you.
An hour and a half.
Yeah. Like, and she loved it afterwards. She's like, "I miss my job," and like all this different stuff. She was so happy, right?
It's funny.
And then even I came to that realization. I mean, I think I need to give you props here, and you still actually tried running a marathon on top of the Ironman. So to give some context here, that night that Kai and I decided to, hash this out and like figure out what the plan would look like so the Ironman was successful as possible, was the mindset that I was coming into there with. Kai, I mean, you're kind of silly about this, man. You basically came to the dinner and he's like, "Yeah, so I'm gonna run a marathon, but I can't put a good time down, and I can roughly do it during this timeline. So can we do a marathon in May?" And then all I said to you was like, "Come on, man." I was like, "Dude, the Ironman is the priority. Let's actually just put our hair down." Though we don't, neither of us have very much hair, but like, let's just let our hair down and like let's just focus on you hitting that goal, and then when I'm 40, the ask will be the same, right? Yeah. So I think that segues really nicely into like, what do we want out of 2024? The biggest thing that's being discussed in our industry right now, so for those listening, we're in the solar space, we're in the residential market. Our goal is to install solar on 1 million homes by 2040, which is approximately a 12% reduction on Canada's electrical related carbon emissions. It's a huge impact that we're going to be able to make once we achieve that goal in a cumulative manner. It's awesome. But the Greener Homes Grant is going away. So the individuals that are listening, the Greener Homes Grant is going away. That grant gives you $5,000 off of a system, and it allows people to have easier access. The funny part about it is solar in the last month has dropped in price, and that almost doesn't actually make any difference if that existed or didn't exist. It still hits the mark, and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of noise going on right now, right? The Canadian government hasn't taken a position in terms of if it's actually going away or not. And there's a lot of news and noise going on around right now about layoffs. The cool part about it, though, is we've been through this so many times, man. Like where the government has like really helped out and then punched us in the face, or actually in the back of the head. I'd rather see the punch coming. Getting punched in the back of the head, it's illegal for a reason because it could kill you. But we've been punched in the back of the head so many times. And Steve Claggett, a shout out to you. Don't get hit in the back of the head, buddy. But ideally, for us, we've weathered these storms. And I don't know how you feel, but my confidence is like 10 out of 10 for us getting through this.
Oh, like easily, if not higher. Like, again, even just, we won't go into depths on it, but the amount of times this has happened, not even a joke, is wild. Like, it shouldn't even happen to a business this much that we've been throwing those curveballs that are dramatic, right? Especially at the government level. Do
you remember May 2019?
Oh yeah.
Was it May 2019? 2017?
2017 was the provincial. Yeah, the provincial. Was that 19? Man, the years got all messed up with COVID. But yeah, it was.
Sure, it was May 20.
It was May for sure.
Yeah.
And it was like day and night, right? The lights.
We had it all.
Yeah.
all of our work for an entire year lined up in May. And then we prefer to stay out of politics, but the government's changed. And the program ended with that government changing. And basically all of our projects ended up going away overnight because we didn't know what we know now. Now we prepared for this. Back then we were just like, no, it's okay. Like, it's going to be all right. Like, nothing's going to happen. All of our work went away. I flipped out. Do you remember? I was like, I came to, I was like, dude, I was like, what the heck are we going to do? Blah, 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 blah. And like, and our staff saw it as well, because we've always been raw. We've always been like, hey, this is how we feel. This is what's going on. And the people that were there at that time are actually still here. I think the people that saw it more raw than anybody else is Francis. She's been on our podcast before as well too. If you guys haven't seen that episode, it's one of the best ones. And then Asfer, and we might let him on. He's a loose cannon in the best kind of way. I love it. But I'm just joking. But he's hilarious. And they're still here, and they're some of our strongest leaders. And I think we have a mentality is that if you're able to make it through the hard times together, the easy times are incredibly good. But the difference between now and then is we saw this coming, we slowed down our hiring. We started locking down more projects, we started pushing and adjusting processes, and we actually started advertising and marketing outside of that to be able to start bringing in more organic business that isn't predicated on that grant being available, right? And even our financial strategy has changed too, right? So I don't know, like, what's your perspective in terms of now versus then?
Oh, like day and night. I think one of the things in the company is proactive, not reactive. And I think in those days we were reactive about every little thing. Like, there was a news article that would have some sort of shift and we would like trip out. So we were super proactive. I think this was something that again, you could see it coming. Great program, but all these programs have to come to an end. I think, and what it did, and what the first round and back before 2017 or whatever it was taught us, is that good companies can be built with incentives, but great companies don't need incentives. And I think that's truly what we knew and what we figured out in that moment. And we grew the most. If you really look at a growth trajectory of the company, yes, the incentives are great, but we grew that organically without that, right? Like, we were making growth throughout all the years after that. And I think that's all this is going to teach us, is that, again, we shift some of the pieces within the company that we already did and that we've already looked at, and we just take a different path. And it goes back to what we were talking about before, right? Not that rigid, getting to 2040. We know there's going to be roadblocks and curves and all these different things. And I think it's one of the things that our leadership team is great at. It's one of the things that the Zeno is great at, is just adjusting and still being that amazing company that people can go to for residential solar solutions. So that's why I said the confidence is there. I think the confidence is there through and through with everybody. And when it happens, it's going to happen. It's going to have a blimp impact, like we always talk about, right? When something happens right away, everyone kind of freaks out, and then it dies down, and we adjust. And I think it'll just give us a good, it actually probably will give us a good name in the industry and continue to grow the brand.
Yeah, I think so.
In a natural sense, right?
It's simply a moment in time. And from a goals perspective, our number one goal, like, not external. I mean, externally, it's making sure our clients are happy, making sure the quality of our work is good, so on and so forth, right? Internally is to not lay anybody off. When we bring people on, our HR process is intensive. And it's been extremely well thought out. It's always been very deliberate from day one, the whole IQ, EQ, AQ piece. Like, that was day one. Like, our first hire, we had a strategy in place. It wasn't just like, oh, we need somebody. We kind of laid a framework for all of that, right? I mean, I've typically been considered sometimes an overthinker. Now, in my older years, I've actually figured out, my wiser years, I've actually figured out its thoughtfulness. I'm very thoughtful in terms of the way that I like to think about things. And that's put us in a position that every single person that comes in the door at Zeno and joins our team, we do not want them to leave. We want to make sure that they feel that this is home, that they can be confident in us as leaders, and that we're actually going to make sure that we do what we're saying out loud. So as part of that, even we adjusted our overall financial target and our install target, and we reduced it by 20%, 30%.
Give or take,
yeah. And knowing that if we're going to aim for that to be able to make sure the pipeline of work is there. But in terms of actually building the team out, and adding all those individuals in and then risking those people that we bring in after the fact, so after this moment, risking their potential jobs or other people's jobs is not something we're okay with. So we're going to do what we do best, is do more with less and make sure that we put our feet, dig our heels in and protect the people that we care about, which is our team members, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I think I think a great aspect was an article that just came out that you were kind of quoted in, but continue to be a voice for the industry.
Yeah.
Right. I think that was a big piece in this is the people that are the companies that are actually here for the long term of this industry are going to rise through this, and the ones that aren't, like, good luck, right? So I think it from an industry perspective, it's really solidifying our voice as well, and making sure it's heard through it all. So again, don't see this as a negative towards anything really. I think it's just another thing that we're gonna have to deal with and that we are dealing with. So
yep. Everything in life is expendable, but not people.
100%.
They're not, human beings are not a renewable resource.
No, the sun is, but
yeah. So let's use that to make sure that we take care of people, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
What else? There's one thing we should share. What's an exciting aspect at the end of the year that happened that we kind of publicly announced? 4th location.
Oh. Did you buy new shoes?
No. We should talk about that. That's exciting for 2024.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've always wanted to do is to make sure that solar is available to all. There is a perception in the industry for some reason that solar is only for certain people, but that's not our mindset. No. The reason why we look at it from that perspective is that the reason I got into the industry was because of our relationship, but before that was poverty, right? Like, I come from part of my lineage and my heritage is from a developing nation, northern India, right? And there's a lot of people that live in extreme poverty there. And furthermore, there's a lot of people that live in extreme poverty right across the world. And the single greatest tool that we currently have available to overcoming poverty is access to electricity. What that means in those nations is actually having maybe even a single solar panel. And in 2017, I believe that you went to Nicaragua, and the intention was to support the energization and commissioning of 100 microgrid systems. And you've learned something pretty interesting about the people there, right?
Yeah, you learn that that they're not using it for the things that you think they're going to use it for, and I think that they want to be in charge of it. And so the cool thing was, they're using it. Like, let's just say you throw on one solar panel and battery, like whatever wattage that is. It's supposed to be meant for lights and like a fridge, right, or like the basics. What they were using it for was the TV, so they could watch soccer, a lot of them, which is hilarious, and then the fridge, or a plug for their iPhones so that they could learn. They could actually learn on their iPhones.
Amazing, right?
And like teach themselves stuff. And they, just one piece on that, they would have technology that they bypassed a bunch of the stuff we had, which is super cool to see. Like, they would have tap to pay and things like that with their phones, which I was like, this is wild, right? In the US, they don't even have that.
I mean, Africa doesn't have telephone lines.
Yeah.
They don't have that infrastructure. They skipped that step. They went straight to smartphones. Yeah. And they're skipping almost all the other steps and pain that we had to go through as a nation. But that's the whole idea about Canada, right? You lead, and then the rest of the world follows, at least from a human perspective. But that was really cool to see, right? And I think that's where this all comes back into focus, right? Is that we started it because we wanted to do something really important, right? And we wanted to make sure that we were doing our part for the world. So as part of that, we want Zeno to be Canada-wide. And furthermore to that, we want to be this biggest solar brand in the country, because we know that we care about our team, we care about our clients. And if those are the two pieces that we focus on as an organization, then solar as a whole will be known for what it's actually good at, which is unlocking the potential of humanity. It's unlocking the potential of human beings in other parts of the world, which will benefit us here as Canadians. And here, it allows us to be able to use energy without guilt. If you put it really bluntly, is that you can turn on your stove and be like, oh, it's powered by the solar panels. I feel okay. I'm gonna cook some extra food, whatever, right? Or for even for us, it's like, you know, turn the volume a little bit louder on the speaker. You know, like it's nice to be able to have that solar power sitting behind you, knowing that you source your energy in a way that's you know, based on current pieces, a little bit more responsible. That's not saying that the current energy sources like natural gas and oil and stuff like that we don't like. We are extremely grateful for those energy sources because we wouldn't have gotten to where we are today. But we also fundamentally know how important those resources are and we need to conserve them. Like you said, solar is an infinitely renewable resource. The sun's not supposed to burn out for over 1 billion years, so let's use that, right? And as part of that, what that next step looks like is us opening up our 4th location, which has already happened, and we opened it up in Mississauga to be able to serve the GTA region. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of opportunities. If you're not well versed in terms of how to scale a business, don't start a solar company in Ontario. That's all I can tell you. We've already seen a lot of really crazy stuff, but I'm super excited about it. And as a personal friend of Drake's, I'm really glad to be spending more time with him, right? So
I was actually leaning more Justin Bieber. But
yeah, he's your friend.
yeah. Like, the weekend, you know.
Just joking.
Yeah, no, the launch of, I think, the Ontario side is a big undertaking by us, but super excited to have Zeno as a Canadian brand and be able to kind of say that as well, right? That we're Canada wide and that we can kind of conquer that, help all Canadians achieve our goals, whether that's our net zero goals by 2050 or reducing stuff by 2030, right? Like it's all part that we can play a huge part in. So that was a super exciting announcement that we did at the end of last year, and now obviously 2024 is really just digging into that. So keep an eye out for that. If there's people from Ontario watching, you'll see us more and more. You'll see some nice teal vans ripping around. But yeah, so that was an exciting piece. What else we got on? What else on 2024?
Well, the Surge is coming back in May.
Surge,
the Dome is going to be.
The first game.
Yeah, the
May
first
24th.
I think so.
Don't quote me. I think it's May 24th.
Yeah, the first Surge season opener is in the Saddle Dome. Which is a big deal. So it's going to be a record attendance. The sales and the tickets are already heading in the right direction. So if you haven't grabbed your tickets, grab them quickly. We're already having some difficulties in making sure we get the right ones. And then there is other things that we're looking at as an organization as well too, to be able to continue supporting the community. That's another pillar of our organization, is making sure that we're giving back to the community and supporting in any way we can. And that's fundamentally what the relationship with the Surge is. Yeah, it's cool, it's hype, it gets the name out there, but that isn't why we did it. The agreement with the Surge was literally shook on and founded in the fact that we were doing community work. If you're wondering why Zeno won that relationship, it's because we were doing our part for the community. And if our competitors are listening to this, whoever, like, make sure that you're doing your part, right? It's something that I said in a previous podcast, is that if you're showing up to business just to make money, then what's even the point? It's like showing up to a nice dinner with the goal of just getting full. That's not the idea. You're going to miss the whole meal, right? Is that you need to make sure that you're doing your part. Otherwise, it's not really anything other than just making money. And then that in itself makes that your efforts worthless. So super excited about that. Our teams, from a foundations perspective, has all the right resources in place right now. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 more adjustments that need to be made in a good way. And then we're locked in. Like, we put a lot of pressure on the team last year to be able to do things, and they're really starting to pull through. So ultimately, will you guys see that on the outside? No, but you will see probably a tighter, more focused Zeno in 2024 is probably my guess, based on the things that I'm seeing. And then obviously we got the Ironmans. The stretch for sustainability this year is going to be in Calgary and in Edmonton. Calgary's is May 26th. And Edmonton's is, I think it's August 20th. I gotta double check that date. But if you have a desire to run 5K, 10K, half marathon, full marathon, and you want to do some charity fundraising as well too, please join us. You'll get some Zeno swag. We'll make sure we get the right size for you as well too, and you'll get to spend some time with our team. Last year we had over 35 people run.
That was wild,
from our team, and then an additional 4 or 5 people run externally. This year I'd like to see more people externally. City cleanups are going to be on the docket as well too. We're going to have some awesome guests. We had a conversation with the MCA team beforehand as well too. I think the plan is to be able to have more podcasts coming through, which is super exciting. So we'll see how that lands. And yeah, like, I don't know if I'm missing anything. I mean, there's always lots of stuff.
There's always stuff going on. I think it's just, exciting year ahead.
Yeah.
Lots and lots. It's always, cool to reflect and be able to have these conversations, and then obviously look at what does the year have in store for us. So I think you covered, I can't think of anything else. I think that was pretty much it. So
yeah, I think those are the big things on the company side of things. And then your life is completely all consumed in, I guess, in the Ironman. But what's your professional goal? What's your one thing this year? Because there's an exercise that we do as a team every single year at our annual meeting. Our annual meeting just finished, and thanks again for organizing that. That was a killer place that you found. For anybody looking to do team building, let's give a shout out to Carbon
Valley Ranch.
Carbon, Alberta. Super cool spot.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Super cool spot. Really quaint little town. They have a cool ranch there. It's really good for team building and for other things as well. And we do this exercise called One Thing, where all the leadership team sits around a table and we say one thing that we appreciate about everybody, and everybody takes a turn, and you say one thing that you want the person to improve on. And it's hard, right? Like people are telling you that you suck at something.
I think it's gotten easier though.
For us, it has.
When we first did it,
it was emotional for some people this year still too.
Yeah,
right?
Fair.
For us, it's easy because like for some reason we like getting punched in the face. Not in the back of the head, government. Just keep that in mind, please. We like getting punched in the face a little bit. So for us, it was easy, but it was one of the best ones.
Oh, 100%. I think it was super cool. And then just you take all the feedback and you create one sentence. That structures your year. And now don't remember the exact wording of mine, so give me 30 seconds here, because you can, unless you remember yours exactly.
Well, I can tell you what mine was last year. Last year, I will first seek to understand. So basically the idea behind that is rather than jumping to conclusions and making assumptions, first try to understand what's going on, and then try to seek that knowledge, and then try to understand from there. But this year's mine's a little bit different. You might have to help me quote mine as well too. But what's yours?
I won't share last year's because no one will understand it.
That's funny.
Mine is articulate the inspirational aspects of myself. So again, just being able to kind of articulate that in the business and the personal side better. And then yours is provide clarity for what I need to let go.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to explain mine and I'll explain yours? Do you want to have a little bit of fun with this?
Yeah, sure.
So try giving a whack at explaining mine in terms of like where my weakness is.
So one of the aspects I think I talked about at the starting of this podcast is letting go. I think it's an issue that both of us kind of have. But sometimes for yours, it's actually telling people what information and what piece of data do you need to be able to let go, especially in certain departments. Instead of it just being like hammering individuals that you're kind of going in and creating chaos or setting off bombs like we talked about. It's actually, hey, if you're just providing me with X, like whatever, a report weekly or monthly or whatever it is, that will then allow me for your mind to be eased so that you can actually go through and build the other aspects of the company rather than, again, not knowing. So yours would be sharing the information with the individuals, especially leadership, on what you need to be comfortable to let go of that mind.
Yeah, and I'm so excited about that one because I've already started using it and it's making my life easier. So yeah, I appreciate that one. And yours is share the parts about yourself that's like inspirational. I think for those who listen to this podcast, maybe if you haven't realized this, Kai's pretty quiet but he actually isn't. So I get to see a side of Kai that probably a lot of people don't get to see because it's more of an intimate relationship. And that is the part that I myself and the rest of our team would love to see, because they get to see pieces of that as Kai as well too. Like you're way more funnier than you come across, right? Like you're pretty serious most of the time. So that's going to be really exciting to see come to the surface more. You obviously have a crazy amount of insights that's going to be exciting to be able to get out of you. And you share, like you tend to have the last word in many situations because I think you listen very patiently. And then obviously everything that you're doing from like the Ironman and stuff like that is quite inspirational as well, right? So being able to expose that in like a more raw manner without it being almost perfected, because that's where you and I have gone wrong in a lot of ways too, right? We try to make sure everything's almost like perfect, and then we stumble over ourselves in the process, but we don't let people see that. It's almost letting the parody of our lives come to the surface, because like there's actually more funny stuff that happens than serious stuff that happens. But we only let the serious stuff show, right? Yeah. And everybody always talks about like the Instagram reel stuff. Is like, oh, you show the Lamborghini and stuff like that. We actually are guilty of the same thing. We only show the flaw side. It's not like we're flexing with all these, these monetary things that actually don't matter. But we flex in a different way. So it's peeling that back and just allowing ourselves to be just who we are more often is what yours highlights. Yeah. And the cool thing about this, and thanks for actually explaining mine, is we are both adapting each other's goals as well too. So it's almost about looking at all of the feedback that everybody gets in that exercise and being like, actually, you know what? In all of those things, I can be better too. Yeah. But the primary focus is just your one thing. Yeah. And how it works out, just to kind of close this piece off, is that one thing is the thing that you focus on just for the year. And every quarter, the team gives feedback if they think you're doing better, worse, or you're the same. And if it's better or the same, then they can give you some anecdotal data or some evidence in terms of like, hey, this is what happened here. And then ideally you lock it in and you're like, okay, I'm going to do better in that specific area. So it's really nice. It's accountability at the end of the day, right? And I think this whole conversation has been nice, and it's highlighted that it's not about being perfect. It's about just being a human being. And just allowing everybody to kind of be a little bit more comfortable and not on edge, and just kind of going with the flow and accepting the reality of the world that we live in, and just embracing all of the flaws that come along with that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that's pretty much covers everything. Unless is there anything else missed that we need to talk about?
No, I'm just excited for the year.
Same. I think it's going to be an awesome year. Lots of exciting stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool.
Sweet.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's episode, I don't know, but it's episode
whichever one pops up.
2024. But yeah, I'm looking forward to these conversations continuing and kind of giving updates that come along. So stay tuned. If there's any of you out there watching and you want to be on this podcast, reach out to either myself or Kai. Yep. We're open to all individuals coming on here. If you have a compelling story and you've achieved some cool stuff, or you have a story that you want to tell that you think is of value, reach out to us. We'd love to meet you. We'd love to, share a couch and some space with you and share a couple hours. So hit us up, and we're excited.
Yeah, and then follow, share would be greatly appreciated.